A musical identity can be a confusing thing. On stage, a modern rock band can come across like outlaws. Off stage, they might be very respectable. When one of those performers is someone you know, the pretense shouldn't fool you. Yet commentator Heather King still prejudged her considerably younger brother's band, the Queers.
These days, my idea of a good evening is listening to Mozart's Mass in C minor, praying Compline, and going to bed at 8. That's why all the times my brother's punk rock band has been in town, I've never gone to hear them. Along with the fact that I stopped drinking 16 years ago and have barely been in a club since. A few weeks ago, though, Joe called from the road. The band was somewhere between Seattle and San Francisco, and Sunday they were playing the Whiskey, a notorious Sunset Strip club. When I hesitated, he said, "Come on, I'll put you on the guest list. We'll hang out a little backstage before." I showed up at 7:30 expecting the worst. But the woman who stamped my hand at the window couldn't have been more pleasant. The bouncer smiled, and when I asked the guy at the merch booth for Joe, he said, "Are you his sister? Come on upstairs." Aha, I thought as we walked down a narrow hallway, this is where the mayhem will be. Drug dealers, groupies. Instead, when we turned into a black, coffin-like room, it was only Joe, reading in a corner. "Hey, look who I found," the roadie said, and the way Joe looked up from his book and smiled, well, I must say there was hardly anything better than getting a hug from your little brother. Philip, the bass player, and Dave, the drummer, wandered in, and we sat around eating tortilla chips, drinking Diet Sprite, talking about the distance from Denver to Vegas, Phoenix to Austin. I'd pictured them having an orgy, and instead the poor guys looked like they could all use a good nap. When it was time to go downstairs, the young folk weren't lurching around throwing up and cursing as I'd imagined. When the Queers took the stage, the crowd was watching with something close to reverence. Within minutes, I myself was riveted. I couldn't believe that charismatic lead guitarist singing smart, funny songs with catchy harmonies was my kin. And then Joe was saying, "I'd like to dedicate this song to my sister Heather." And for a while, we were all one. The music did what all music that is written and played from the heart does, whether it is Mozart's Mass in C minor or Get a Life and Live It, Loser. It transported us. Outside afterwards, a wind was blowing up as the band hustled equipment out the side door. I got to carry a guitar to the van. The fans gathered round. We came from Orange County, from Santa Barbara, all the way from Chicago. "Hey, Joe, will you sign my T-shirt, my CD, this can of Bud?" I thought about how much Joe has to love what he's doing to drive 8, 10, 16 hours for an hour-long show. I thought about the passion it takes to spend 20 years on sidewalks and cheap hotels, lugging amps in and out of a van, setting up and breaking down. I thought, I can't believe I never came before. And already Joe was saying, "Hey, thanks so much, you guys. That was great, but we better shove off. Good luck. Take care. Drive careful. Thank you. Thank you." And then they were gone. Petaluma last night, L.A. today, Tucson tomorrow. It was only afterward I thought, I should have asked for his autograph myself.
I don't want to be a granola head.
Heather King lives in Los Angeles. Her brother Joe's band is called the Queers.
Magic mushrooms ain't for me. Or getting all screwed up on LSD. Or reading beat sprouts all day long. And smoking fire out of a bomb. Wearing flowers in my hair and having dirty underwear. I don't wanna be a granola head. I don't wanna be a granola head.
This is All Things Considered from NPR News.
Hey, Jojo. You got on mute.
Got it. I got it. There you go.
Okay, cool.
Can you hear me okay?
Here
Yeah, there you
here
go.
he is, people, in the flesh. How are you doing?
Good, good, good. Okay, hold on. I am ready to go.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm laughing because I put up my pronouns. I finally figured out what I want my pronouns to be. Thee and thou.
So what's this behind you? Is this your house? This is your like living room or what? Where you
No,
at?
this is my office. So behind me is these are French windows. So that leads out to the backyard, and this is a screen, like a sort of Japanese screen with birds on it. My favorite
nice.
style. It's like crumbling every time I move it, something falls off. That's my
Okay.
thing. But yeah, I'm at my desk where I write and stuff. So
Gotcha.
yeah, so this is part of my little pad here. And you're in your studio in Marietta.
Yeah. Sorry, I was late. I was running around and I had to cook some ribs, so I had to get them on. And then Momo, the puppy, has completely disrupted the whole household. The cat's mad at her. Mina's mad at her. It's driving Mimi crazy. She's taking a nap. And so, anyway.
It was really, I want to do this. My whole idea for having this, these kind of series of conversations, like I'm going to have Alan on, our nephew, who's a plumber, and have him talk about like his whole thing with plumbing, it's like, I just wanted this series of conversations with people about, what they do, what they love, what they've given their heart and their life to, kind of, right? So first of all, okay, I'm just gonna, it's so weird because you're my brother and I know you're in this band that's, popular and stuff, but like I've never Googled you or anything. And so just to kind of prepare to talk to you, it's like, oh my God, they have like a huge wiki page, there's like a big wiki page with all, every guy who's ever been in the band and every.
Oh yeah, everybody who's given us a cup of coffee is now, they're
like
all,
a queers. Yeah.
Everybody, one little, they're in the queers. I'm like, so I've tried to go in there to delete, get the pertinent, 10 to 15 guys that are pertinent, B-Face, Hugh, Wimpy, and get it down to these guys, not these guys that played one gig with us in 1997 at the Rat or at Chet's, and all of a sudden their name's up there. And I was like, these guys didn't play in the band, but whatever. But anyway, no, just to slightly change the subject though, whenever I meet people at shows, like fans will come up like, hey, Joe, blah, blah, blah. The one thing I like to do is ask them, I say, hey, what do you do for work? I don't know why, but I'm always like really enthralled with what they do for work. Like, what do you do? They're like, who, me? And they want to talk to me about music or whatever. They're like, me? Oh, I work. And so it's really interesting to see the lines of work, the people that come to your show. Nurses, we've had doctors, we've had, policemen, we've had firemen, we've had, Starbucks worker. It's really funny, but I always am interested in like what they do for, and everybody's kind of taken aback. They're like, oh, me, I just blah, blah, blah. But it's really, one guy's like a millionaire businessman down in Fort Lauderdale. It's just so crazy. I think they're punk rockers, and I'm like, really? So it's kind of interesting to see what everybody does. So
yeah. Well, I often think how okay, let me just say up front, in case people don't know this, like Joe's punk band, The Queers, has been, you're like in your 40th year, right? Of like the band's been going with maybe a little hiatus.
Well, since we started the band,
yeah.
Since we really got on Lookout Records, we started it way back when, but then once we got on Lookout Records, met Ben Weasel, and then we started touring around 93, 94. That's kind of when the band started. Everybody's like, oh, you started in the 80s. Yeah, we did do a couple of 7 inches way back when. Yeah, you could call it like back then, but whatever. So yeah, we've been able to do it for years. So
continue it, yeah, for sure, decades. And so I'm just going to read, just to set the tone. I just want to read a couple of the names of some of your albums. So, and when we grew up, man, we were not PC. Anyway, Grow Up, 1990. Love Songs for the Retarded, 1993. Move Back Home, 1995. Dump Back Down. A Day Late and a Dollar Short, which I think is the best name for an album ever. Punk Rock Confidential, Back to the Basement, also a great title. Yeah. And then I see you've turned a little messianic lately. We have Save the World 2020 and Reverberation 2021.
Right.
Anyway, so I'm just saying, like, a long, this has been your life's work, and yeah, it's just beautiful. But we grew up in North Hampton, New Hampshire. Our father was a bricklayer. All of us kids had music lessons, which, when you think about it, was pretty incredible that they, because there wasn't a ton of money to spare. But don't you think, like, Daddy's work ethic in a way, like, rubbed off?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, you got to have. Yeah, look, yeah, for sure. Yeah, you got to stay right with it, the work ethic, and you got to be a little OCD, and you got to be a little bit of this, that, and the other thing. But the
Right.
thing is, with a band, with anything, I guess, is you've got to have that determination, but you've got to stay with it. And someone asked me what the secret was, and I was like, years ago, I said, I'm not going to worry about my credit score. And if I miss a car payment, like, there's just stuff you give up. You get this incredible life, but you've got to give up certain stuff.
Right.
Luckily I got married, and Mimi, we don't have kids, but she's able to handle me going on tour. A lot of people can't do it. So
Yeah.
it's some give and take, but yeah, no, you're right. Dad's work ethic, staying with it, and seeing the job through, and yeah. So, but
Yeah.
like you said, that we were all musical and so and artistic, and so that kind of, I think it's cool. You're a writer, I play music, Jordy played trombone, and so I guess me and you are carrying on the tradition of the artist in the family, which I think is cool. But
Yeah.
it's hard to, like, make a living off art these days, and you got to stay with it. But we've been lucky to be at this level. We don't have tour buses and all that, but yet I can make a living. I can pay my guys. We can live off the band,
Right.
and we're happy at this level. We're not as big as Green Day, but who cares anyway? This is gravy. I never thought I'd get to play music this long. So
Right.
to me, I mean, I've worked for a living. I owned a restaurant. I worked in the fishing boat, done all sorts of stuff. This is like a day at the Playboy Mansion going on tour, it's like, come on, man. So that helped me too. But, that work ethic coming from, I see a lot of younger guys, like, they just think it's, too tough for them. Some guys have quit. They're just like, oh man, I'm just getting burned out. And they don't have that work ethic that Dad had, that, like, like, dude, we're lucky to be able to do this. And this is what a lot of people never get to tour and go to Europe. I mean, a lot of guys I play, JJ Rousler never went to Europe. He's a great musician, JJ, and
Yeah.
Kevin Kesey and Tulu, he never got to go. And there's a million other guys and bands that never got to do this stuff. So I don't have much patience with people that, kind of complain. It's like those guys, it's like, okay, fine, I understand it's not great all the time, but just see you later. I'd rather go down this path in life. But we've been blessed to be able to do it and do it at this level and make a living. And so yeah, it's been good, but at the bottom of it is a good work ethic, because otherwise forget it. I've seen a lot of talented musicians, they don't make it because they don't have any work ethic. They
Yeah.
just don't, so I
Yeah.
don't, I think also playing music, you need a good sense of humor, because you got to roll with the punches.
Right.
And we found ourselves, Dave Lurch and I, one time, we went to Russia, and our visas were up Sunday night at midnight. Our visas were good. Like, the promoter didn't tell it didn't, we could have made the visas good for 3 months, but instead we made it to, like, anyway, our flight was at 6 a.m. Monday, and our taxi was a little late. So we got to the airport, Domodedovo in Moscow, at like 1:10 a.m. They made us go back and take the train back to Moscow, which is like 45 miles, and get visas, even though we were 1 hour late. Yeah, this lady was really mean, the boss lady, and so we had to go back. So there we are, the sun came up. We got back about 6 in the morning. It's like we're dressed for a luau. It's literally like, probably 10, 15 below zero. We're in sneak, 28,000 euros on me. And they'll kill you for the gold in your teeth, never mind for 28,000 euros. So we can't go near a cop. We can't ask a cop for help. And, you know, and our visas are up anyway, going, oh man, I was like, that's a weird thing, you know, being in Russia or China, you know, a communist country. Well, not communist, you know what I mean? You're behind enemy lines if you're in Russia with no visa. And God, you got, you know, that's where we like said a silent prayer. We're like, man, we need help. But luckily we got out of that. But it was, you know, you get in these hairy situations and it's kind of scary, but yet at the same time, you need that sense of humor and just say, oh man, but you know, yeah, that's where, yeah, I remember that very well, being going, oh my God, I can't believe this, because they'll throw you in jail and just keep your money. You know what I mean? You're stuck. Who knows how long you'd be in jail for over there with no visa, all
Yeah.
for 1 hour and 10 minutes.
Right.
So, but anyway, I've seen a lot of great musicians. They don't have any work ethic and they kind of fall by the wayside. So,
Yeah.
you know, for every Ben Weasel or me or whoever, there's a lot of guys that just don't have the work ethic. So there's a lot that goes to playing music, but at the same time, you can certainly make it at our level and there's, you know, and have a great time, which we're doing. So we've been pretty blessed, but you got your sense of humor and just keep on trucking and roll with the punches and you'll have a great time, you know?
Yeah. Well, I always think, I mean, you and I have both had our little problems with alcohol and drugs, right? And I do feel, like you said, like you have to be a little OCD or a little, like I always say, make your obsessive tendencies work for you. Because I do think, I mean, I write, you play music, they're two different things, but the life of trying to make a living at it and really having it be your vocation, like you gotta be partly not, you know, you have to be, I think the obsessive streak and the drivenness and the, whatever it is, it's like, it all works together if you really, I think, are passionate about doing the thing, you know? And for me, it's like, the other thing was, I can't really do anything, you know, like I can't work in an office. I can't, like, there's a whole bunch of stuff, everything I can't really do, you know what I mean? So it's,
well, it helps. Yeah, it helps to be unemployable too. So it's like,
exactly. Or just, you know, like so maladjusted that you can't really get along, you know, like for any, like in a confined space with people. But yeah, no, I think definitely. And I do think, you know, we grew up in a home. I mean, the older I get, the more I look back, we had books, we had poetry, like the old man would recite poetry. We had, you know, my mom would play songs on the piano, and we liked nature because it was free. But yeah, so there was a deep, I mean, I really do think all that, and a real work ethic, and in spite of my own like 20-year detour into the dark years, I do think that stuff really, you know, there's part of you, I think, on a subconscious level that does want to kind of honor that, right?
Yeah, right. You got to stay with the program. But you know, back then we were lucky to grow up then when, like, thank God we didn't have the internet.
Right.
And, you know, it's just like, to me, it's like just, it, you know, as far as I'm concerned, you can blow it to hell. So, you know, luckily you latched on to like books or whatever. Thank God we had that thing. I, you know, love reading books. I didn't go to college. I just read books and kind of, you know, found my way in life. But thank God we had that. And so, you know,
we
anyway,
could just roam free. You know, like our time wasn't, you know how these days, like kids have like play dates and everything's like schedule. I mean, we just came home from school and changed our clothes and took off, right? Just to whatever, explore, go down to the pond,
right.
Tadpoles.
Right. I mean, now it's like the kids all have to be like, they're in soccer and they've got to go, you know, they got to be in the band and they got to do soccer and they got to do karate. Yeah, they got to do karate and they've got to be endlessly amused, and it's just like a weird separate thing. But I think part of the problem too in the world is that is that, of course, the whole family dynamic was, the mom and the dad and sitting down at the dinner table together, that's affecting it for sure. And
Yeah.
that's why they're worried about, like, gun violence. Yeah, it sucks, but you can't legislate your way, you can't enact laws to get out of these problems. It goes way back to, like, I think the whole family dynamic, really, when you get down to it, believing in God and having good role models. And I'm not saying me or you would be any better if we didn't had grown up in those situations, but you really feel for these kids. But there's
Yeah.
something missing, I think. And
Right.
that whole online, everybody's just so mean and they're bullies online because the anonymity of it, you can hide, and they don't know who you are, and you can say all sorts of horrendous stuff. So, I mean, you put your name out there and you just got to take your lumps. People like us at our level, you got to watch out. Like, we don't have enough money. I got to go out and play shows and meet fans at the merch table, so I always get nervous sometimes about meeting people, but knock on wood, it's been great. But it's just a different world out there. And so, I don't know, but anyway, I told you that story too. Kids oftentimes ask me about music. I don't know if you get the same thing from writers. You probably do, aspiring writers, people starting out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, it's like that story where the kid wrote me, where when we started, there was no internet when we first started. So kids would write us. So to me, it was very exciting. We would get stacks of letters. And that
Like
kid,
snail mail, like regular letters.
of course, yeah. Yep. P.O. Box 162, our P.O. box was at North Hampton. And the guy came up to me at the show there a few years ago. I told you the story, but I'll say it again because it's a good one. Because I oftentimes tell young musicians this story where they think success is a tour bus or Madison Square Garden. And that's like, really, those bands are few and far between that make it like Green Day, and get that big. That's like winning the lottery, really. There's a lot of talented musicians out there, but for every Green Day, there's 1,000 unknown bands that never make it, even at our level. But that kid wrote to me, and his friend told me this and said, you saved my friend's life. And I was like, how? And then the kid had written to 5 bands back in like 1995 saying he was suicidal and he was going to kill himself, and he had the plan, and he'd written goodbye notes and all this stuff. And nobody wrote him back, but I wrote him back. And he got my letter the day before he had the whole thing planned out according to his best friend. And he was going to kill himself, but my letter showed up. And he said, his friend told me, he said, if that letter, he has it to this day, if the letter hadn't shown up, he was going to kill himself. Now he's married and he has 3 kids. And the only reason he didn't come down to talk to me in person was because he had to get up at 5 a.m. because he's got a job and 3 girls, I think. And I go, that's music right there.
Yeah.
That's the benefit of music. There's that book. I don't know if I told this story. There's a great book by this studio engineer. He's a psychiatrist or psychologist now, named Glenn Berger. If you get a chance, get his book. I forget what it is. I bought it. He worked at the record plant with Phil Ramone in New York City. And he started out as just moving tapes from one studio to another. They literally pushed rolls of tape, big racks of tape, racks of tape, and from studio to studio. And then he got to work with like Bob Dylan and Joni Mitchell and like all this incredible stuff. And after the studio closed, he had gotten some success. Phil Ramone died, record plant closed. He didn't know what he was going to do with life. And he met, one of the guys said, go up to Berkeley and talk to this professor up there at Berkeley. I don't know the guy's name. You got to read the book. But anyway, I love the story. And he talked to the guy, and the guy said to him, no, he sat in a class, and the guy said that same type of story I just said about the kid writing to me. This guy, the professor, would go in once a month and he would play like accordion at an old folks home. And so he went in, and there was always a guy sitting off in the corner that never came in the room. And he said, well, how come that guy never comes in? And they said, oh, he's deaf. So he went over and he played for the guy, and the guy started crying. It's really something else. Yeah, and he started crying. Yeah, because nobody ever went over and paid him attention. You know what I mean?
Right.
And he said that's the benefit of music. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like that's
Right.
not all Madison Square Garden. Don't think it is.
Right.
And then you know you take your victories where you can get them in music and in the arts, and that's what music's about. You know, touching people on that level. And if you can make it to Madison Square Garden, fine. And if you can't, that's fine too. You know, you got to go down
Right.
those paths in life. But I thought that was a great story where the guy started
Yeah.
crying, and you know, it's real touching. And he said nobody ever played for him. Thank you. And so he said that's music right
That's
there.
it.
So
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
tell those kids, I go, hey man, who cares? You know, if you're in it for the tour bus, it's like I don't
Right.
know, just something said I wanted to play trumpet and play music. I don't know what it was, but you know, we just
Something in
listen to
you
records
said
over
that
and over. Yeah, and
when you
I
were
would just
young.
yeah, and you know, here I am. You know, I wanted to play trumpet. Geez, I just had to play trumpet, and you know, it was funny. But some of the lessons that I learned off Warren Muchemore. You remember Warren? He was the old music director from
Yeah,
Portsmouth.
at
And
North
he
Hampton.
just passed away last year, and the lessons I still learned, some of that stuff from Warren, I still use to this day, not only in music, but just like how I carried my guitar case. He used to always say, I love this, and I still tell kids this today. If you carry your at the time trumpet case, he said if the latches break, always carry it so if the latches break, it's going to fall against your leg. Don't have the outside thing. And I said, whenever you're carrying the guitar case, have it so if the latches break, it falls against your leg. And you know what I mean? And we all do it now.
Yeah.
Ginger does it. Yeah, we're like, oh, we were going to do it for your old music teacher. But he was a great teacher, man. We were, you know, Warren was really good. He was really good. He could have gone, he was amazing on so many instruments. He could have really done something commercially, but I think he was just happy teaching kids. And that was the benefit there. And remember the marching band in Portsmouth? They were like famous across the nation, Portsmouth, New Hampshire, because of Warren. He did their you know, marching routines and stuff. Remember they'd go down to DC and they were amazing. I never got to do it with that, but he was the architect behind that, but he was a smart guy.
He was. Warren Muchemore. And this was North Hampton Elementary School that you're talking about, right? In
Yeah,
like the
North Hampton.
60s.
And he also taught at Portsmouth High School, and they
Okay.
were famous for their marching band.
Yeah.
And they would go to DC and for the president and all this stuff, big league stuff. And Warren Muchemore did the routines. I mean, he was amazing, man. When we got to high school, we were light years ahead of all those other kids because we had Warren teaching us just big stuff and little stuff. We were really good. So, but
isn't that
yeah,
something?
that was good. That was great. But I saw Stan Bednarz was the music director for years and years at Winnicott, our high school.
Mm-hmm.
Stan Bednarz, and Dick Ray was the choir director, and Dick, I believe, is the principal to this day. He's a musician too. He's a great musician, Dick. And he played keyboards on a couple songs. He came in the studio with me, you know, a few years ago. And but Stan was a great teacher too. I remember I ran into him probably about 15 years ago, and over at the car dealership, and he gave me a ride over to Mom's condo because I had to drop the car off for Mom. And there was Stan Bednarz. I said, Stan, it's Joe King. Oh, hey, Joe, what's up? He was all proud of me because I was playing music. I'm like, hey, man, and I'm playing music and touring, you know. And so they were all psyched. But as you look back, probably a lot of kids thought I was a bum, but maybe I was at the time. But I'm like proud that I kept playing. You know, very few people were able to still play music.
Kept with it.
Kept with it. So we were lucky, but it was a really good time to play. We had great teachers, though. Wayne Elliott, he was great. You know, he was big influence, really, when you look, even though we only had him through 8th grade. He was, you know, I remember stuff he told me more than like in high school, really.
Right.
You know, certain teachers. So
we're
lucky we had people like him around. So Warren.
We did.
Stan was great. You know, learned a lot from all those guys,
Yeah.
really. So
No, think about it. I think you're exactly right. It was one of the things, like any of us kids, even now when we talk about, which we do a lot, our childhood, like it almost always, it's like stuff that happened around the table, because we had
Yeah.
supper together every single night. Our,
Yeah.
you know, dad was at the head of the table, mom was beside him. And there's something about that. Even, I mean, we had a lot of
Right.
fights around the table, just a lot of drama around the table. But yeah, and those great teachers. Oh, there's your new puppy. Hi, Momo.
yeah, I'm sorry. Mimi's sleeping and I'm in charge of the dogs. So I wanted to bring her up here because she's at that phase where she's biting stuff. I wanted to bite
Oh.
through. So anyway, that's
Oh,
Mo.
okay.
This is Momo the pup. Hi,
Oh,
Momo.
okay. Here's Joe Queer's new.
That's
So
Momo.
Joe,
Hi, Momo.
she's adorable. Yeah. Oh,
Who's
look.
that? She's she's turning her
On
head.
Zoom. She's being shy. Oh, look.
She's sleepy, so she's doing good. But when they're
Good, yeah.
quiet, you got to watch out. But
Yeah. So wait,
Anyway,
so you started out playing the trumpet?
yeah, I played trumpet. Jordy played trombone.
Trombone. Okay. And then like
Yeah.
who were you listening to? You know, like who were you listening to in like high school, for example? I mean, were you listening to the Ramones then? Were they even around?
No. When I first started washing dishes down at Hampton Beach at Boar's Head Inn, those guys, one of those guys down there, that summer, David Bowie, Ziggy Stardust came out. So that, for whatever reason, we're in it. They would play it, and that's where I was introduced to David Bowie, Ziggy Stardust, which we all love. You know, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, Suffragette City, and all that. So that was kind of like that summer, and so then from that, I got into because of David Bowie, I got into Mott the Hoople, Iggy Pop and the Stooges, T-Rex, you know, a whole bunch of bands because of David Bowie. And the next thing I know, the Ramones come out, and Tulu was like living in New York, and he's like, you got to hear this song, Feet on the Fret, with a baseball bat. And it kind of all made sense from what we were into, me, Tulu, and Wimpy, to the Ramones, you know. And you said, I remember you were listening to the Ramones, and you're like, they're just like a punk rock Beach Boys to me. And I was like, yeah, that's right. That's exactly right.
Mhm.
But we came out of that era in the 60s. When you think back, you know, there's always a song from the 60s, you know, playing like a you know, remember the AM, Dale Dorman at WRKO. And
Right.
so I remember, I'm doing an interview.
Is that Mimi?
That's Mimi says hi.
Mimi!
Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing
My
it.
sister-in-law.
Hi.
We're having a Zoom. We're like recording. We're gonna put it on
You
YouTube.
haven't changed a bit. You're just always the same. Wow, she never changed,
Yeah,
huh?
she's doing great.
Oh,
You
need
look
the-
great, Mimi. How do you
Yeah,
like
this-
Momo?
Yeah, this was crazy.
Driving us crazy, but
She crazy?
oh, yeah, it's having a puppy. You know, we had the, you know, Subi and Mina are older, and Yasha the cat, and so having a puppy, she's driving everybody crazy, man. It's something else, but yeah, we're having a good time.
Yeah, I'm struggling finishing the thesis for
Yeah,
my degree.
yeah. You're almost there, right?
Yeah, but still tough. Still tough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mimi's going to Columbia, and you're getting a degree in.
Japanese pedagogy. Pedagogy? How do you say
Oh
pedagogy?
wow, Japanese
Yeah.
pedagogy. Whoa.
Yeah.
yeah.
I already finished taking all the classes, but now I have to finish the
He's just doing her thesis now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's very
Yeah.
tough.
so
Yeah. So we're going back.
Hey,
We're
that's all
talking about our roots, Mimi. We're
we
going
were
way
just
back
talking
to
about
childhood,
Oh,
we're doing a
high
podcast on
school.
the show. So,
Okay, cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Lots of fun.
We're
All right,
gonna-
good
I'll
to
be down
see
in a
you,
minute.
Mimi.
yeah, I'll be down in a minute. But yeah, but back then, remember, like, you know, the summer days and it was always like, up and away by the fifth dimension or whoever did that,
Yeah.
or like every time you turn on the radio and every song was like the Turtles, Happy Together,
Yeah.
feeling groovy, ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba.
Yeah, it was such great music, all of it. I mean, there was,
Every song. And then Joey Ramone, the Ramones had that song called, I can't remember when it was, Rock and Roll Radio. Do you remember lying in bed with the covers pulled up over your head, radio playing so no one could hear? And I remember I would have a little AM radio with it was all mono, with a little earplug. And I could still remember the smell of the 9-volt battery, and I'd put it there under the covers and I would listen, and it was great. And I told him, I was like, I was so surprised when you said that, because I thought I was the only one that did that. But I remember that, but that's where we came out of this, where the 2-minute pop song, the Turtles, Del Shannon, the Stones, the Beatles, the Monkees, Paul Revere and the Raiders, him or me, it was all great, great stuff.
yeah.
Motown, the Supremes,
Roy
you name it.
Orbison. Yeah.
And so we were lucky that we came out of that. And then I was in the band. So by the time I got to high school, I realized I was only going so far with trumpet. Jordy was really good, but I could read and all that, but physically I couldn't do the staccato notes. So all of a sudden I realized, I'm like, whatever. Then I'm getting into David Bowie. So I'm like, I want to learn guitar. Dick Ray gave me a few rudimentary lessons. And here I am, but it came out of that whole thing. If you think back then, those summer days, and there was always like some great song playing in the background. I remember I was riding my bike on Grandview Terrace. There was a ton of kids around. I remember growing up, there was always a ton of kids. I remember this group of girls walking by on Post Road. I don't know who they were. They probably all moved away, and they were singing that song, Feeling Groovy.
Yeah.
They were all singing. But it was like, that's what we came out of. So that 2-minute pop song, and the Turtles, Happy Together. And so it was really great to grow up then, because you didn't have the internet, so we're out playing. But I think a lot of that too, people were just nicer to each other because you knew your neighbors. You know what I mean? Nobody thought about suing each other. Like, all the parents were on the same wavelength. So if you screwed up in front of Mrs. Weston, she was calling mom, or Mrs. Fudgy, or Mr. They all the parents were on the same page. Like, it was like doing it in front of your mom. If you did it in front of Mrs. Faraji, they knew. There was no hiding.
And you were like, we were always getting in trouble in a way, but we were also like respectful, and we knew, they also had your back. I mean, if you hurt yourself or something, you could go to any of those places. But no, I know it was a great time for music. I really, I was more like the Bob Dylan, Joni Mitchell, but then we both had the shared love for country western, like old time, Patsy Cline, and of course George Jones and Hank Williams and all those guys. But now that you mention it, right, the 2-minute pop song, right, that's kind of what your music really grew out of. Those like catchy.
Right. People ask me, and I go, well, I grew up, I'm older than a lot of those people, so I grew up from listening to that great pop stuff, Paul Revere and the Raiders, and so
the Monkees.
I just love that type of poppy stuff. So so that's where it all came from. That
you like? Who's the one? Is it Lesley Gore? Who did you have a thing for? Didn't you write to her or something?
Yeah, I did. I asked her if I could produce an album for her, which would have been the best one she ever did, in modern times. But she passed away from cancer, unfortunately.
Oh, she did.
Yep.
What did she sing again? What was her big songs? Lesley Gore?
It's My Party.
Oh,
it's my party, that, and then Sunshine and Lollipops, and she had a bunch of songs.
Yeah.
She was great. I love that. I love that type of Phil Spector and all that stuff. So I love that.
So you joined up with Tulu, Tulu, and Wimpy, your two pals. Yeah. And that was kind of how it started in Portsmouth.
Yeah. And so, back then it was like, remember collect records, and it was exciting to like go to record shops. I remember living out in Venice Beach, and Capitol Records, I don't know if they still do it, but the last Sunday of every month they would have a record flea market in the parking lot at Capitol Records building. And I remember getting some incredible stuff out there. But remember, like, you'd find these stores were like, oh man, I can go to, what is the one on Mass Ave in Cambridge, Sonny White's or something? I think JJ Razzle worked there or something. You know, it was like you'd explore and you'd hear about this record store and you'd go down and find these, you know, it was really exciting, and find some old
records.
Howlin' Wolf. It was really cool. So it was the internet kind of took a lot of that away.
Yeah, the
So-
real fun.
Oh, it was great. Like, look what I found. Oh my God, you couldn't believe it. And so
And then you'd also in those days hang out with your friends and listen to music together, or I did
yes.
anyway.
Oh God, yeah.
You know, like
yeah.
in the basement of the Cushings. I
sure.
mean, we spent freaking hours and hours down there listening to,
Right.
oh, whatever, Joni Mitchell,
Right.
Buffalo Springfield, Rod Stewart, all those.
Surprise if he still is in that, right? When
Yeah,
the new
you know,
album
the
would come out.
band.
Oh
Traffic.
God. But remember, it was so exciting to go to the record store and, you know, the new
Yeah, the
Bowie
new
album, or, you know, and you'd take the cellophane
sleeve,
crap
the
off it, and you'd
jacket.
open it up and the smell of it and everything,
No.
and you'd like peruse every last little thing on the album. And
On
it was
the
like
album
the
cover.
album covers were really important too, like
Yes.
artwork and what they put in there. And
Yeah.
God, I can remember it. You'd put it on. I remember I had some old stereo and I had little headphones kind of hooked up there, and I put it on and sit there in bed and listen to, you know, the latest thing. And it was so exciting. Then you listen to the second side and go back and listen to it. But
Yeah, like
you
a
do it a
million
lot with your
times.
friends. Yeah, you'd sit around and drink a beer or not or whatever. Like, oh, dude, listen to this, check this out. It
Yeah.
was so exciting back then. But you're right, it was a lot more, I think, communal back then.
Yeah.
You know, you
Like you
get
listen to music with friends.
Right.
And
Right,
talk
you'd-
about it
yeah.
and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
7 or 8 people would be sitting around listening to the new whatever it was.
Yeah,
Like, oh,
smoking
dude.
pot. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that was
And
that was a
therefore,
fun time.
yeah, and it got into your memory banks in a way I think that maybe music today doesn't, because it was so right. And as you say, those summer afternoons, that's a great image, because if you live in New England, man, the summer is like this time that's just this gilded time in your memory. It's only 3 months out of the year. It's freezing cold most of the rest of the year. And we
Right.
lived near the beach. We lived on the seacoast of New Hampshire. And so you'd ride your
Oh,
bike
God.
down. And
It was, you know, it's funny because there were so many kids around. I remember during the summer, like, you know, people wouldn't stay up super late back then because there wasn't, like, we had 5 channels on TV. We had, you know what I mean? Remember when
27,
UHF came
38,
in?
56.
Well, that was, you know, afterwards. Before we only had 4, 5, 7, and 9 WMUR or something from Manchester, which sucked. And then, but then we got UHF, and Dad got the antenna up there, and he was pretty
Right.
good at that, you know. And so we had the TV downstairs, and so we had channel 27 and 38 and 56. and
56. We watched
watched the
Creature
hockey games, and
Feature,
like, you know, it was
Twilight
yeah.
Zone.
But during the summer, like, nobody, I mean, I don't think anybody had central air conditioning back then, did they? No, nobody.
Oh,
I mean,
no. Are
nobody
you
had air
kidding?
conditioning.
No.
No, I mean, very few cars even had it. I remember my friend Roy Matusi, his mom got a whatever it was, and it had AC. I remember it was ice cold in that car, but it was really something else that she had AC in the car. It
Yeah.
was really weird. Like, you didn't have it.
No.
So,
No, you'd have like a fan, maybe, if you were lucky, you know, like an electric fan.
well, you'll see kids now, and they're just spoiled rotten. Like, oh, we're going to allow the kids to take the test over because the air conditioning went out, and you know, we don't think it's fair on them. And it's just creating this, you know, class of kids, people that are just entitled. I oftentimes think you see these guys will attack their girlfriends, or sometimes the girlfriends will attack the guys, and they're like, you know, there's a case down there where the kid in high school asked the girl to the prom, and she said no, and he killed her. This happened in Connecticut. And it's because these kids are so spoiled and they never say no. They never hear the words no. we did, we heard no and we understood no. And I remember, kind of on a different topic here, but I remember being on our baseball team, me and Ross, and we had a great team and we were playing one of the cheaper teams like Stratham or something, and they sucked that year. And we knew we were going to cream them. That was the word. We are going to cream them. And I remember that the coaches.
We being North Hampton?
Yeah, North Hampton, yeah.
These are all like teeny New Hampshire towns, by the way.
Right. And I remember the coaches took us aside and they said that we had a little meeting and they said, all right, you guys, listen, okay, we know we got a great team. We know we're going to beat these guys, but these guys are trying just as much as you, and they love playing baseball just as much as you, and they got feelings too. So I want you to, let's just play honest. Let's not really rub it in, but let's not be poor winners. Let's not, you know what I mean? Don't rub it in, be respectful of the fact that these guys, their parents are here and all that stuff. So, have feelings for them and don't be, I never forgot that. They had a speech, don't be poor winners.
Don't be a poor winner. Yeah.
Yeah. Not poor loser. Don't be a poor winner. And now, of course, it's like, it's like all about being poor winners. What athlete isn't a poor winner?
Right.
So that was like where you came from, that whole mindset, you really looked up. I remember playing during the summer, we were playing on the common, playing like football or something. And we had this guy that was married to one of the gals down there at Grandview Terrace, the older sister, and he was married to her. He got out of the Army. And anyway, he was our coach. He was only there. Bill Bailey, I think his name was. He was there. Very, very nice guy. He's from the South. And he coached our football team. But we were warming up during the summer. We were practicing football. And there was a funeral go by. And I believe, too, it was a guy that had died from North Hampton when he died in Vietnam. However, Bill, the coach, he's probably in his 20s at the time, had us all stop, take our hats off and do the the thingamajig, the salute, and be respectful. And I mean, that's how you were raised. You didn't think twice. You're like, yep, and we're happy to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd never see that now where kids stop a game and go and salute when a funeral goes by. Are you kidding me? But I remember it was a guy that died in Vietnam. I don't know if that even made a difference. I know we would have stopped, but anyway, he made sure we saluted because he was real respectful of the fact. I remember he told us, he goes, no, that guy died for us in Vietnam. We've got to respect, his family. So, it was something else the way when you look back. And, you had that sense of community, but it was quite a different world back then. But the older you get, the more you
appreciate
are appreciative of the fact, right, that you came from that and not, this crazy. Remember the time me and you were at Target and we met this mom? I don't know what we were doing. You might have been waiting for some reason we're over there. We met this mom and she was a little wild-eyed. But she was like going, yes, it's my 11 or 12-year-old daughter's birthday. And I'm getting her a cake or I'm buying her some stuff. And we're going to spend I remember she told me and you, just a stranger, we're going to spend $8,000 on her. And me and you, when she finally walked up, do you remember that? And we're like, she's like on pills or something, but we're like she was bragging that she was going to spend $8,000. And it's just like, it was like me and you looked at each other like, oh, that kid's got a few, let's hope that apple falls far from the tree. But that's the mindset, like, we're going to spend $8,000.
Right.
I think sometimes it's like these mega churches I'll see down here and they're just huge. And you're like, do they have to be that big? It's like, look how big our church is. We love God more than you do,
Right.
It's like,
Yeah, but, I mean, all this, I know, and all this stuff.
12 years old, $8,000.
Yeah.
For the birthday. It's like, oh God. So.
Yeah, we still laugh about, sometimes like my mother would make spaghetti sandwiches sometimes, about like the meagerness of the food and stuff. Like I got a blanket once for a Christmas present, But really, when you look, you know what I mean? I was like, oh, it's not like part of your kit as a child. Like, is that a present? But seriously, no, I couldn't agree more, because one of the things is you're so grateful. You're just grateful for every little thing, everything
Right.
that you got, everything that you can buy for yourself.
Yeah.
But wait,
Yeah.
before I forget, we have to talk about, okay, so how the name the Queers came about, because I'm sure a lot of people hear it and think, oh, they're gay or whatever. But because so when we were coming up, and this was true, I think all over New England, right? But like queer was, it had nothing to do with, I don't even think we knew what a gay person was. It was like,
Right.
no,
Nobody
queer
cared.
meant
Right.
lame, like a lame. It was like, oh,
Yeah.
we make fun
yeah.
of each other
Lame,
if
yeah.
you showed emotion, or if you had like a lame pair of shoes or pants or something like that. So like, you're so queer. And so we said it so much, like that was our
Right.
that was kind of our word.
Yeah.
So right.
Yeah. So right. We just wanted a name that would offend people. And I had been living out west and in LA and like the South Bay, where they were from, the band Black Flag, they had Black Flag with the 4 bars spray painted everywhere. I remember I would take the bus down from Venice down to, I'd usually ride my bike, but sometimes during the winter I'd ride down and work with Skip in Manhattan Beach. I lived in Venice Beach. And anyway, you see Black Flag everywhere. So when I went home, I was like going, let's do the Queers and we'll spray paint it all around Portsmouth. And that was kind of like the idea, like a name that was sort of offensive, but people will remember it. So, now it's kind of, you don't think about it that much. It's just another band name, but people do remember it. So, yeah, that's kind of where it came from. The whole, let's spray paint it around Portsmouth. That's where I thought it would be funny. We all laughed. We're like, yeah, that's great. So, but at the time, you don't think you're going to be playing years later or anything like that. But
no, but I've always loved the name, because to me, whether it is or not, like I always took it too as partly a nod toward, like just the family in a way, it's like, our childhood, you know what I mean? And it's a bunch of things, but so wait, okay, so you're with Tulu and Wimpy, the late Tulu, God rest his soul, right? And like talk about the like Pappy years and the Starlight Club.
Yeah, that was all that same time, like the early Queers, where we were all into the Ramones, and we're all musicians. Tulu played guitar and Wimpy drummed and I played guitar, and so we kind of stumbled around and we're like, we could be a band. And Tulu was actually really into Bob Dylan and country and western. Tulu he was a great songwriter, but unfortunately he never really got his due. He never really sobered up enough, looking back, but to be truthful about it. But we just started the band fooling around out of boredom. We would go to Ramone shows, and then of course Pappy was our next door neighbor there, and
Pappy where was he from?
They were from Pennsylvania or something out there, West Virginia or somewhere down there. And his son was stationed at the Kittery, the submarine. He was in the submarine in the Navy, on the submarine, and the submarine was getting refurbished for 2 years. And so they were stationed in Kittery, Maine. And then they went to Groton, Connecticut after that. But for those 2 years, that's where, he was our neighbor there, and that's where we met him. And so he came over, and he always hated long-haired. He didn't like long-haired country guys at all. He just hated them. So he was he was great, saying he knew O.J. Simpson. He goes, I know O.J. Simpson. I call him Orange Juice. He was really funny, man. But it was a fun time and creative and all that stuff, like learning to play music. And we did a little recording, and geez, we had a lot of fun, but getting back to like what kids ask me all the time, oh, what do you do? Blah, blah. I go, number one, the best times I had in music had nothing to do with money. I can't remember. I never remember how much, I want to make money, but it's like that has nothing to do with the memorable times that I remember in music. I had as much fun with Pappy and Tulu and Wimpy and Ross and you and Brian Barrett and a whole bunch of us, than as much as with anybody else afterwards, really. We had a great time
Right.
listening to Patsy Cline and playing the records and all that, that was great. So, but yeah, that was a funny time. And it was funny because we're in the studio and we're like, I don't know why we got it in our heads that we needed another song. And so we had Ross bring Pappy down to the studio and we said, Pappy, you got to sing a song. And it was like not a country song, but anyway, Tulu did this little riff and then we did that song, Love Me. And we said, go ahead, Pappy. And he goes, what do you want me to sing? And Brian Barrett had the t-shirt with these words on it. Beat me, bite me, whip me, fuck me. And so we're like, just sing what's on his t-shirt. So we did the thing and it was all like live and we never had played the song before. And like Tulu started playing and Wimpy jumped in and I played guitar and Tulu, I think, was on drums or bass. Anyway, we did the song and Pappy sang it and then we ended up putting it on the record, but that was like the only time we played that song. And it was really weird. And it's kind of famous now. People ask us about the song Love Me. What's going on? What happened? You guys ever going to play Love Me? What happened to that guy? And so we kind of immortalized Pappy. He passed away now, but I did get in touch with his son, Willie, young Willie, they call him, because Pappy's real name was Willie, and William. And I told him, I said, yeah. And so they were able to look it up and see that the song was on YouTube. And so they got a huge kick out of it.
Funny.
Yeah. And they're like, this is after Pappy had died too. I had to do I think I paid a few bucks and did an online search, but I found him, Willie and Ginny. They're still married and they had the kids and all that stuff. And yep. And I talked to them and they were really proud of the fact that Pappy got on a record. And we were still playing. They're like, these guys that live next to us, turned out their band still plays and like travel around the world and all that. So it was kind of funny. But yeah, but anyway, yeah, that, money had nothing to do with the fun times. I had as much fun back then as I ever had music, really. We were like pretty innocent. And that was back when we were still enjoying drinking, I think, too. We had a lot of fun with it. We had a lot of fun with it at times.
Yeah.
A lot of laughs. And so that was a fun time. But yeah, that was where we started. And then, through the years, we were able to keep playing and I got different musicians and we got on Lookout Records. We were lucky to keep playing but I was, around good musicians and it was what I wanted to do. And so I stayed with it. And so we were lucky to keep playing. But like, I owned a restaurant. I'm jumping ahead here, but I owned a restaurant and we got asked to do an album. I was going to like buy another restaurant up in Portsmouth, where the Friendly Toast is. I was going to buy that. I had a deal before they went in there. I was going to do that where the Friendly Toast is. I was going to call it the Square Deal Cafe. And I had the deal and Babe Veranda was going to help me and Dad. And Babe was going to back me. And I was going to go, that's what I was going to do for life is, sell my restaurant in Exeter, get out of there and move up to Portsmouth. And, but we got asked to do an album and Ben Weasel produced it and Lookout Records and Green Day broke big after that and all that. And so I would work like 90 hours a week. And I remember I would take $150 a week pay out of the restaurant because we were paying back Mom and Dad and Babe. And, if I needed more, I'd take it. But that's basically what I would take, $150 a week. But I got the first royalty check for our album. We did Love Songs for the Retarded, and I got my first royalty check from Lookout, and I believe it was $4,263. It was $4,200, and at the time was like winning the lottery because I was busting ass and happy. I had a good time. We'd practice on weekends in my restaurant, me, you, and B-Face, and they were working for me, and whatever. I didn't, money, whatever. I never had money, so whatever. The lack of it didn't bother me really. It's like I didn't care, but I got that first royalty check. I remember showing Dad and I was like, Dad, I think I'm going to go play music. And he goes, you got this for your album? And he goes, I don't blame you. And Dad was really behind me.
Yeah.
I always wanted to start a restaurant. And finally, I did it with his help and Babe helped us and all that. But once I saw that royalty check, I was like, I'm going to go do this. And so that was a good impetus,
Yeah.
The one in front of it was like, are you kidding me? And,
Yeah.
and, 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 So that's where, I was like, hey man, forget the
You're off and
restaurant.
running. Well,
Right.
that was another great thing about mom and dad. I mean, these are like hardcore working people,
Yeah.
and they helped put me through law school, but they always totally didn't, they just wanted us to be happy, and they never said
Yeah.
to me when I decided to quit my job as a lawyer and start writing at the age of like 42, and obviously you with your music, they were totally encouraging. They never said, oh, you're never going to make any money at that.
No,
You
no,
know,
no,
no.
never. Yeah, no, dad said, I don't blame you. I'd go for it too. And we were drawing some big crowds even back then.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I knew you loved it
yeah,
too. That's a
yeah.
great thing.
And so, because I came at the cross, now I knew I had the opportunity to get up there where the Friendly Toast is now, and that's going to this day. And I knew it was a gold mine. And Dad and Babe Grondin knew it too. They were helping me. And Babe said, I
Wait,
could,
what's this, Joe? I didn't hear you. What?
when I was going to go up to the front where the Friendly Toast is in Portsmouth,
Oh, yeah,
I had
yeah,
a
yeah.
chance to get, it was called the Starlight Cafe or Stardust Cafe at the time. I think Stardust Cafe or something. Anyway, I knew it was a gold mine, and Dad and Babe Grondin knew it too. And Babe's like, I can, Joe, I'll help you. We can scrape up 20, 25 grand. I didn't need that much, but we're going to call it the Square Deal Cafe. And we knew it was a gold mine, but I knew if I either went down that path, I couldn't do music because it was one
Yeah.
or the other.
Yeah.
And I could almost see, okay, alcoholism, 3 marriages, and in the back of my mind, I'll have money and all that stuff. But in the back of my mind, I'm
Right.
always going to think, what would have happened if I played music? And
Yeah.
I had a guy down here, Heather, Bill, and he's like 70 something now. And he told me he's got like 3 kids and he's married and all that. But he was a studio guy, retired now, but he played like, his bands would play around Atlanta, like they played with the Allman Brothers in Piedmont Park before the Allman Brothers got big, and Atlanta Rhythm Section, and a bunch of these, Southern people. He played sessions with them. And he goes, I had a chance to like really make it in music and go do something, but I chose to stay married and get my kids and run a music store or whatever. But he said, Joe, I am now, at the time, I think he was 69 years old. And he goes, I'm 69. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, what would have happened if I played music? I just feel there's so much stuff I could have and should have done playing music, and I never did it. He goes, I'm not unhappy, but there's this little nagging thing in me that says,
Right.
what would have happened if I played music? And he goes, I'm so glad that you went for it, because Joey Ramone, I remember sending him a tape years ago, and I saw him backstage at the University of New Hampshire. Sent him a tape of 4 songs. And so I bullshitted my way backstage and I said, hey, Joey, it's Joe from the Queers. And he came right up to me. I had sent him 4 songs and a cassette tape. And he immediately came up and he goes, I love, 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 and Goodbye, California. Those are great songs. And like, I just said I was in the Queers and, I had sent him the tape, but he knew the song titles. He knew the lyrics even on some of the Love, Love, Love. He said he wanted to record it. And, I was like blown away. This is probably 85 or something, 86. But in the back of my mind, that was always there too. Joey said, you're a good songwriter, man. And so if I had got the restaurant and all that, I would have thought, what could I have done if I played music? I don't, geez,
Right.
I always wanted to do it. I believed in myself and like, I would have had money and all that. But in the back of my mind, I would have been like my friend Bill and saying, I don't know what would have happened. And so luckily I didn't have to cross that because I really wanted to play music and I believed in myself. Even when we didn't do good in Boston, we didn't get a lot of recognition, but we really stuck with it. And then, we had guys just show up at the last show we played in Cambridge that I looked at, musicians, I don't want to name them, but I really looked up to these guys and they came up to the show and they're not even playing anymore. Like, Joe, I can't believe this is great. And I was like, we were lucky we even opened up for these guys in the back in the day, but we, you know what I mean?
You're still there.
And those guys never got to go to Europe. They never got to do stuff. They were big fish in a little pond in Boston, but they weren't able to do it, and So it really meant a lot to me to see it. There was two guys I was talking about, but anyway,
Yeah.
you know, we're lucky, you know, we're lucky to stay with it. There's a lot of stuff has to go right, but you gotta have that work ethic and dogged determination. But
Yeah.
you know, anyway, there's a lot to it. But yeah, I would listen. The one thing about being from New England that really helped us was I was so like you know, I felt like a nerd because we were from New Hampshire. We're like, you know, all the kids that were from Boston were cooler. You know what I mean? Like Jay Razzler and, you know, all those guys, and they were from Saugus and Bill Ricca, and like they just were
Right.
cooler.
Right.
The real kid, you know, they were just hipper than us. We were nerds. So luckily that held me in good stead because when I would meet the Ramones or whatever, I'd shut my mouth and I would listen to them.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I get young kids and they're like, oh, I'm going to go, you know, this is what I do, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, I was not like that. I did not tell Johnny Ramone about my amps. I asked questions and I shut my mouth because I was like, so,
In
you know, I
awe.
felt inferior and stuff. So I was able to like take in all this stuff.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It was
Oh,
like, I
God.
just, like,
Oh, yeah. New
you know,
Hampshire's like the queerest state in the
Right.
union.
right. And
I
had
mean,
nothing
you know,
to,
and I say that as a proud, you know,
right. We were
deep
never,
in my heart. But yeah,
we were-
there's no doubt about it. Like, New
we had
Hampshire
nothing to share.
does
So it
not
was
have
like,
cachet, you know.
right. So, but I was able to listen to John Felice from the Real Kids. And when I met Jay Razzler, and, you know, I became friends with a lot of these guys, but certainly the Ramones, but I would listen to them, you know, and like just sit there and listen to them talk to other people backstage. You know, because I was like, I don't have anything to offer here. You know, I'm just going to like, I'm happy to have a beer with Joey Ramone and listen to what he's telling me. But he's taught me a lot. I'm sure to him it was throwaway stuff. But for me, it was stuff that I still remember to this day. He was a smart guy too, and very appreciative of what music had given him. And
Right.
I really like that about him. And he said, hey man, we're lucky we get to do this stuff, you know? So, you know, he
Right.
didn't have much time. Like I'll meet some of these guys, maybe at our level, and, you know, they act like they're doing you a favor to play some of their crappy songs and they're arrogant and stuff. You're like, oh dude, that's not what music's about. You know, if
Right.
you gotta be a better person doing art. We're so lucky to be able to do it. You got to be a better
Right.
person at the end of the voyage than you were before. You might as well go just manage a Taco Bell because you haven't learned anything. Is the way I look at it. You know what I mean? I mean,
Well,
we all fuck up.
totally. No, and you
Let's
gotta
just
share it, you know, it's like
Right.
it's a generosity of spirit. Yeah, I mean, I've definitely, you go to these literary gatherings sometimes and it's just like, yeah, everyone's kind of currying favor and clawing for status. And I'm just like, are you kidding? You
Well,
know?
do you know
Like-
that song, that story? There's a great short story by Charles Bukowski, and it's about a guy who wrote a little bit. He's got a job, and then he got a book out, and he had some success, and he basically started to believe in his own bullshit.
Mm,
And the next thing you know is he's teaching, and then you know they ask, and he's like, and through the story, you know the guy's full of shit, and he has nothing to offer, but he like thinks he's really something special. And those are the guys I don't have much. You know, I knew Joey Ramone, very humble, and he was so happy and appreciative of what he got from music.
yeah,
Very refreshing. And I try to take a page out of Joey's thing. Like not playing
Right.
music. It's not all, you know, peaches and cream, but most of it's fun, you know, and you have a ton of laughs and you get to travel around. And so I try to take like what I learned from Joey and just be appreciative because he goes, we're lucky to be able to do this. You know,
Yeah.
we're not doing you know, we don't have the cure for cancer. So, you know, that was something I learned from him, just his attitude. Then I'll meet
right.
these other guys who have, you know, attitudes, and I'm like, oh, dude. I mean, I've met a lot of musicians. They were the greatest people, and then they have a little bit of success, and they're kind of jerks. And I go, I knew you, and you were the greatest guy. You were cooler. It's like sometimes you go to the 12-step programs, and these people are like cooler when they come in the doors, just straight off the, you know, rather than being, you know, sobering up after 6 years. All of a sudden, they're pompous blowhards, and I'm like, oh man. I learned
Oh,
from Joe.
yeah.
You know
Yeah,
what I
that
mean? I
happens
learned from those
sometimes.
guys. Be appreciative of what you got. Don't believe your own bullshit and
Yeah.
laugh at yourself. Don't take yourself too seriously. But I learned all that stuff from from, from the Ramones and Joey and all that stuff, but I
Yeah.
learned a lot from him.
Yeah.
So we played, when we played with them, Kevin Kesey was with us, good friend of ours. And so he got us on this show at the Agora Ballroom, opening up for the Ramones in 1986. Now, Heather, it was like, I think 3,000 people there. We had never played in front of 300, never. And so there we are. We don't know our ass from a hole in the ground. And there we are in front of 3,000 people. You know what I mean? It was just like too much. But Joey knew we didn't know anything. And he was really kind to me. And he said, listen, when you open up for bands, get up there and play your best 22 minutes of music. People are there to see the headlining band and just slam them. He said, not everybody will like you, but the ones, people will remember you, the ones that like you, and they'll remember you, and they'll be appreciative of the fact that you don't play too long.
Yeah.
And so I always tell, young bands what Joey told me. I said, play your best 22 minutes. Less is more. You make more of an impact. The show flows. The sound guys are happy that, everybody, the promoters. And I never forgot that. That was a great lesson he told me. And I never forgot it. You know, so
that's good. Because you could
yeah.
use that in many different areas of life,
Yeah, the 22-minute rule. That's right.
Yeah. Or so, just, don't do your best at your little thing, but don't try to outshine somebody or outstay your welcome.
Well, right. Well, so many times, I mean, we headline a lot of our shows, really. But yet I realize, I think of me being out there and it's like, it's great. I want to see the band, but I also want to talk to my friends. I want to talk to chicks if I'm younger. I want to, it's the whole social thing, especially after COVID. So like, we kind of let the crowd, if the crowd's going bonkers, sure, we'll play longer, but we kind of stay 35, 40 minutes tops. And then so many times I've seen bands and they're opening up for us and they play like 52 minutes. And then they go, we've got 3 more songs. And you can just feel the energy dissipate out the door. And you're like, dude, you are not going to win them over. You're getting further and further away.
Right.
So cut your losses. But that's something Joey said, feel the crowd. Like, we don't use a set list. So we kind of ad lib it and see. Some nights they went faster, some nights slower, but definitely on the length of the show, 40 minutes, 35, 40 minutes. People are happy with it, so if anything, leave them wanting more, that's stuff right. I learned from Joey right there. He was great, man. He was really cool. He was a good guy, really, really honest too. So I learned a lot of stuff from him. He told me, be your own worst critic. He goes, I don't need to read the New York Times to know if I've got a good song or a good album. I know, so be your own worst critic, don't
and follow your own lights in a way. So all right, so just tell about like to make it a little more current, like what has your year been like this year and what do you have ahead of you after 40 almost years or 30 or however long it's been?
Well,
like you just got back from Europe.
Right, we did 6 weeks in Europe. So we hadn't been in a couple of years because of COVID. So we did, it's kind of longer for us. Usually we go about a month. So we did 6 weeks in Europe. We did April 20th, around 6 weeks, April 19th till we flew back May 31st. So,
and where'd you go?
We started in Italy for a week, Spain for a week. Then we meandered up through France, Germany, Switzerland, back to France, up to Belgium, Holland, over to the UK, back through Hamburg and Holland, and then up through Scandinavia. And our last show was in Helsinki. We did Oslo on a Saturday, and then Sunday we flew up that day to Helsinki, and we played the show Sunday night, and then Monday hopped over to the airport and flew home. So then we had, I think, 11 days off, and we started our US tour. We did that for like 3 weeks. And then we got home. And so, so it's just like going. So, but I always say,
you have some stuff, aren't you? Isn't it like, I thought I saw some flyers of like for the 40 years, the Queers 40 years, like you have a bunch of stuff coming up, don't you?
Well, yeah, we've got to go out west in September, I think it is, for about 3 or 4 weeks. And then around Labor Day, we got to do some makeup shows. We canceled the last 3 shows on this tour because I got COVID. So we're making those up. And so we've got those, but that's about a week. And then, we're working on a best of album and a live album. And so I often say, with music, the cool thing with music or art, as you know, is there's always something to get out of bed for in the morning.
Yeah,
Music,
totally.
I get because I kind of manage the band. So I even get a little buzz. Like, when you talk to drug addicts, they're like, oh, I used to like going to cop dope was kind of the buzz. You know what I mean? It was like, you'd get caught up in that whole thing, going to score the dope. And the tour is kind of like that. Like I get excited, I'm like getting the plane ticket for Ginger. Okay, Ginger, you're coming in at 3. Hoglock's going to be here at 4. All right, you guys are going to practice at 5. I'll have ribs going and blah, blah, blah. And we're going to try this bass player out, and Cheeto's coming up. And, the whole thing's like a buzz. But there's always something. I've got a million projects. I've got to work on the house, but I've also got a million projects musically that I want to do. I've got my little recording studio here. So, the band, there's always something to get out of bed for in the morning. I've always got stuff going. It's exciting. Yeah. And what I dreamt of doing in high school, in the back of my mind, I don't think I told anybody, but I always always dreamt of being a musician and saying I toured around the world and I had friends here and there. And like, you're doing a job that, and I'm sure writing is the same way, that you make new friends. Every time I go on tour, I make new friends. It's great. It's like, you're really blessed. And so I go, God, man, this is great, man. I'm doing a job not only where I make some money and people cheer me on, but I make new friends too. Right. And I look at some of these guys, I won't name their names, but some of these guys I played with, and they were so into music. And really, the true musicians, I think, I'm a lifer and I'm proud of it. A lot of these guys drop by the wayside, and I was really surprised. I won't name names, a lot of them. And it's like, dude, you were so into it. What are you doing now, man? You're sitting at home, drinking a beer in your underwear and looking at porn on the internet. What are you doing, dude? We used to live life. We got stuff to do. There's gigs to play. There's people to meet, man. There's stuff to do. Come on, man, let's go do it. So I've been blessed that, my band now, those guys are really excited about doing it. And, my drummer, Hoglog, Alex, he's got 3 kids. He's got 3 kids. They're all like now in their, I think 13, 14, or 15 type ages there. But he makes it work. He's a guy from Paducah, Kentucky, and I'm a guy from North Hampton, New Hampshire. And Ginger's from Italy, and so we're appreciative. We live off the band, and but we're all excited about it. And that's the main thing, is like, get these guys that are jaded and start complaining. They're like, hey man, I know it sucks. It's not all, a lot of it sucks. I understand, but those people, you just kick them to the curb and keep going. Because if you don't have a sense of humor and want to do this, forget it, get out. But I've got friends all over the world. On this tour, people I hadn't seen for a few years because of COVID. I was like, man, this is great. I've known these guys a long time. And it's like, geez, you really got to, be happy for that, be appreciative of that, be grateful, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so, so it's, I haven't got tired of it yet. So I don't know. I enjoy doing it, and that creative thing and the creativity. And so, I just love doing that stuff. So I'm proud of the band and that we've been able to do it. But I mean, at the same time, it's I don't think people are like, you're going to quit. I'm like, what? No. I mean, what am I going to do to do what? Right. It's like, I like to play music, and I got my studio, and I like the whole, that's my life I've created and what I dreamt of doing. So no, I'm not quitting on my lifer, but I don't think about it at the same time. I'm just like, whatever. So
it's like, it's today. What do I need? Well, and I think, and that's a lot of what I am. No, this has been great, Joe. It's really, I mean, a lot of this stuff I didn't even, it's not like I didn't know, but we've never sat down and really articulated it. But as you know, I mean, that NPR piece, I did that in 2004 when you guys were at the Whiskey. I mean, that was almost 18 years ago. And look at you,
Yeah.
you're still going
Yeah.
strong, still doing the same
Yeah.
thing, and I'm still writing. No,
Yeah.
it's really beautiful. And
Yeah. And in a few months, we're going to be playing, I believe this time in LA, we're playing at the Viper Room, just across the street. Just about. Yeah. We played the Whiskey again. The last time we were in LA, we played the Whiskey. And
oh man, that's where it took place. Yeah, that was it. Wow, unreal.
At the Whiskey, and I don't think I played there since that time you saw us. I'm not kidding you. That was the last time we played there, because we got, we're playing Orange County at the Observatory if it's on a weekend, or the Viper Room or whatever. Anyway, but yeah, it was cool. We went to the Rainbow Room and I met Joey Ramone there. He met me, him and his girlfriend came down, and then Richie came down to the Whiskey with me. And so he played drums with us that night. And I was like, yeah, man, this is cool. And, another cool thing is, like, I remember playing the Roxy, and I remember going to see Lou Reed at the Roxy back like in 79 when I was living in Venice Beach with my roommate, Ken, who's still around. Ken's still around. He's sobered up, man. He's doing great. And, it's funny because I'll go back. I remember just being backstage going, God, I remember seeing Lou Reed at the Roxy, and now I'm playing the Roxy. It's so cool. I oftentimes think, like, going upstairs at the Whiskey or backstage at the Roxy or even over at the Viper Room or whatever. I'm like, God, if these walls could talk, what would, I remember playing the Troubadour, and we don't normally play there, but I was talking to the owner guy who was Doug Weston's, it says Doug Weston's Troubadour. Well, this guy was Doug Weston's partner, and he still owns it. I don't know the gentleman's name, but anyway, I was in the office, which is kind of like the house out back of the Troubadour, and getting paid. And I was talking to them, and I was like, man, just think John Lennon was at the Troubadour when he got drunk with Harry Nielsen and got thrown out. And, like, being backstage at the Whiskey or the Roxy is just like, oh, Brian Wilson played the Roxy. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
God, man, it's just, I love going out there, just thinking about the people that were there, that played. And so,
there is something really, about,
oh God, every story the Doors, when we were at the Stones, came to see us at the Whiskey, and just like, God, man, it's unbelievable. So, but I get a kick out of that.
Right.
I don't, I
think, just being part of that whole legacy. That,
wow, man. Yeah.
Keep it going for the next people,
Yeah. So, but I get a kick out of that. But, yeah. So, but yeah, it's been enjoyable. You gotta be grateful and, take your victories when you can get them in this business. I used to think that I'd have to be Bob Dylan's roadie and just sit there and listen to him to kind of find the meaning of life. He's the guy, the old man on the mountain for me, like Bob Dylan, I gotta hang out and I realized there's plenty of life's lessons right down here at this level. There's tons of them. All I gotta do is open up the door and walk out and go out the door. And then, you learn about life. And so it took me a while to realize that too. And I'm like, oh no, there's plenty of life's lessons, right here, right where I am. So I don't need to meet Bob Dylan. However, on another note, I did watch this documentary when I was in Europe about Bob Dylan, about Rolling Thunder. Netflix has a thing about the Rolling Thunder review tour. Remember, he did it like in 76. Wasn't that like the 250th anniversary of the United States and stuff? And it was really, if you haven't seen it, go watch it.
I haven't seen it, no. And I'm a big Bob Dylan fan, but I haven't.
Yeah, watch it. And Mick Ronson, who played guitar for David Bowie, Bob Dylan somehow met him and invited him out on that tour. So we went from like David Bowie, Ziggy Stardust, and the Spiders from Mars to Bob Dylan. He's back there playing with Bob Dylan. It's really weird, and Joni Mitchell was there and Joan Baez and the whole thing. And the whole Patti Smith was there. But at the same time, a lot of you watch it and let me know what you think. It was really exciting, I'm sure. It was like the first time I remember seeing Bob Dylan smile. It seemed like I never saw him smile. You know what I mean? It was like,
yeah.
But
what was your take on it, though? So it was
I
great.
thought it was really good, but a lot of it was kind of pretentious. Like
Yeah.
they're a little too much like everything's, no matter
Right.
what they say, they all acted like they're on stage, especially when they were
Right,
talking to Dylan and they had to say something zany and wild, and
Right,
you
right,
know,
right.
he'd retort, say something back, and then they'd say it. It's, I don't know. I just felt it would take a lot of energy to be with a whole crowd,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and you'd
Well,
have
I
to be
think,
stoned and drinking, I think. But
yeah,
it was pretty cool though. You got to watch it.
yeah. Okay, no, I wrote it down because I will watch it. But I think, the one of the things that I love about just kind of surveying your whole career is and this is what and in a way it has been the same for me too, this idea of like you don't have to wait until you have a master's degree in creative writing or good or musicology or guitar. You don't have to wait until you have like a famous mentor to blurb you and promote you. You don't have to have a huge 10,000 people Instagram following in order to even dare to put, it's just like, just start where you are with who's around you, who you get a kick out of, who loves the same things you do, if it's a band, and just start where you are and go and keep going, right? And who cares about,
right.
I mean, of course we want to make a living, but I feel like if you love it enough and work hard enough, like somehow you'll make a living. All evident, all odds seemingly to the contrary.
It'll fall into place if it's
Yeah.
going to be right. And so, right, yeah, that's the cool thing though with the internet. You got YouTube and Instagram and all that stuff, is that it does allow people, like you'll have YouTube stars, like
Right.
they just get famous, like in Justin Bieber. I think that's where he was just like doing videos from his bedroom in Canada, and all of a sudden he became a star and kind of a blowhard from the looks of him. But anyway, I wish him well. But that's the cool thing about the internet too, I'm saying, is that I think this is great because it allows, people to do, have an outlet. They've got an outlet, whereas before you'd have to like have a book published, or you'd have to have a record out, or a label behind you. Now you can kind of DIY it in a lot of ways. So it is pretty cool. And
that's true. That's right. You can DIY it like we kind of always did, except maybe get a following, or you can put it out there, right, in a way where you really don't have to wait around for someone to publish your book.
So that is the cool thing about the internet for sure. That's cool for sure. So, but anyway,
another room in the music world, and she studies, she plays the viola. She went to Germany and studied medieval music, and there's this whole body of plain chant that was sung specifically around the bedside of a person who was dying. And she herself goes into hospices and hospitals and private homes and plays, sings people out in a way, like plays for people who are dying or who are in deep pain, or isn't that great? I mean, wouldn't you love to have someone singing to you as you go to your last breath, or playing?
Yeah, that's unreal. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, and she was lovely, So it goes back to music. Music brings everyone together. And whether it's punk or Mozart or Amazing Grace or whatever, right? It's just like
that's right.
Really,
it's needed more than ever. So
don't we ever? I mean, you talked some about how, really how the culture's changed, but like the kids at heart, like they're still the same, right? In a way, like they want to belong. They want to hear a catchy tune. They want to look at
it. A lot of them. Yes, I think.
Just your fans, not so much kids.
Yeah, when you get down to it, it's just a fun thing getting into music, and it's like a hobby and a, life's work for some of us. And, it's really cool. And the whole social thing too, I was thinking about that, going to shows, and, it's really fun. And the main thing is, pretty much every people are having fun, you know, you're bringing fun into people's lives. And I mean, I had so many people come up to me, you know, as we get older, and they're like, dude, many times it's happened. Your songs got us through, dude. If you know, your songs Don't Back Down got me through high school, man, or love songs. If I didn't have love songs, man. And so that's good. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
dude, thank you, man. Yeah, I'm glad you hope you're doing good, man. And but it's an honor when people tell you that. And you don't know whose lives you touch, the kid writing to us, or you know what I mean, you don't know. So you just, you know, try
Yeah.
to do the next right thing, and you know, things tend to just, you know, take care of themselves. The big, you know, take care of the little stuff, and the big stuff follows, really.
All right.
So,
Well, thank you so much, Joe.
yeah, thanks for doing it. This is great. So yeah, that's awesome. It's good to catch up. Happy birthday and all that stuff. And sounds like you had a good week though, huh?
Yeah, I really did. Yeah. For some
Cool.
reason, it was good to just get through it, you know. So yeah, now full speed
Yeah.
ahead, you know.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's good. Well, anyway, I'll be in touch. And yeah, we are actually playing Tucson. We have a Tucson show. I meant
You
to tell
do?
you. Yeah, in
When?
October. September, October, yeah. I'll find out. I don't have it listed yet, but he was gonna send me the itinerary. So I know, but we had a Tucson show. So
All right, well,
yeah,
find the date.
yeah, I'll
Yeah,
let you
you're
know.
gonna
Yeah,
give
I
me
was
the
surprised
date.
because we usually, if we get down that way, we play Phoenix. So but we've got a Tucson show. I didn't ask him either. He goes, "Oh man, someone wants us to play in Tucson." I said, "Let's do it, man. I got a
Oh,
pal
fun.
down there." So
I hope
yeah,
I might be out of town for a little, like the first week in October or something, but hopefully it's not.
I'll let you know.
Yeah, let me
I'll
know.
let you know.
Let me
I
know. Well, that'd
don't
be
believe
fun.
it's the first weekend in October. I think it's later on,
Oh,
I
cool.
believe.
Well, see,
Yeah,
now that I
yeah.
live in Tucson, I think it's like a little bit been put on the map in a new way.
Right.
It's like
Yeah.
Phoenix. What's
Oh
Phoenix?
man, yeah. But anyway, okay, I gotta go
All
tend
right,
to my
all
ribs.
right,
I forget
Joe.
all
All
about it.
right,
But anyway,
thanks a
yeah,
lot.
hang in there, and I'll talk to you soon. Let me know when this comes out. We can put up a post to it on you know, on Facebook and all that stuff. Or send me
Yeah,
a link
okay,
and
yeah, because it's
we can
like
do,
a
you know what I
totally
mean? I'll put it
slightly,
up and get. Oh yeah, a lot of people, yeah, tons of people would look
yeah,
at
it's
it.
like a
So.
slightly different view of you, and like, you know, you probably don't get, you know, talk about your childhood and stuff that much. So
Oh
yeah,
no,
great.
no, absolutely not. People just, you know, they want to ask dumb, more about music. And it's totally cool, but it does get boring. It's like, you know, whatever. So
Yeah.
that's the fun stuff to talk about. Warren Muchemore and Wayne Elliott.
Oh, totally. Oh, totally.
I told you that story.
I'm gonna dedicate the video to Warren Muchmore. I'll
Yeah,
look
there you
him
go.
up.
But Heather, I told you that I was in this. Did I ever tell you the story about the spelling bee? You know how Wayne Elliott, Mr. Elliott, ran the
Yeah.
spelling bee. I was always the only boy in the for grades like 4 through 8. I was the only boy that ever made it. But thanks to my reading, I would get in it. And the last year I was in 8th grade, and I was really bound and determined. I was like, I want to beat. It was always me, Betsy Chevalier, and Judy Chonak. And they would always like, remember when Portsmouth Herald would publish the list of words, and they would study the list
Yeah,
of words. Remember that?
totally. And the Manchester
But I was
News
like,
Leader.
my attitude was like, no, I want to like, if I spell the words, I want to like know the words. And I did know you know what I mean? Through my writing. I didn't want to study it and do it. To me, that was fake. I wanted to like do it,
It's like
you know.
cheating.
So anyway, I get up there and it's me, 8th grade. That's it. I'm going to high school after that. It's me, Betsy Chevalier, and Judy Chonak. I go, oh God, I want to beat them so bad. We go around. I'm like really feeling confident. We get around everybody else because there's a bunch of kids. You know, they all drop out. It's me, Betsy Chevalier, Judy Chonak. I get up there. Mr. Elliott goes, tobogganing. Tobogganing. And I was like, oh my God, tobogganing. I was like, I remember thinking to myself, give that to Judy Chonak. Give it to Betsy Chevalier. I'll never forget. So I get up there. So
Let's
I
wait
know I'm
toboggan. That
supposed
was
to-
something we did all the time too.
right, but I go tobogganing, and then I
know.
got nervous because
Yeah.
I knew I could spell. I wasn't thinking because
Right.
I could
2
spell
G's.
toboggan.
2 G's, 1 N.
Right, and I screwed up and I spelled it wrong, and I got out. And I remember thinking, why couldn't you give that to Judy Chonak? So guess what the next word was that Judy Chonak had? I never forgot it to this day. Science. Science.
Oh, come on.
I was like, come, I give them the word. You couldn't have skipped something. Tobogganing. I never forgot that in my life.
Yeah.